was etched in your mind forever, basically. Other small details they pass, but certain things they cannot.
You could see it with the aftershocks. It was moving. We didn't know how long it was going to stay up for.
I thought, if this landing goes, or the stair goes that we're on, we're gone.
I've never been so frightened in my life, actually.
I remember thinking, with my eyes closed, what will I hear? Like, what will it be like at the end of my life?
There's nothing you can do to prepare yourself for that day. That day was just, yeah. It was a standout building, and it was like a big tooth. It stuck like a big tooth in the skyline, and a very prominent building. I worked at the Grand Chancellor for 9 years. Part of my job was going out to the airport and bringing in tour groups, and we'd get halfway to the hotel and I'd have a microphone and I would tell them, oh, if you just look at the skyline, see the tallest building there, that's where we're headed.
I remember walking around the roof, and there wasn't many buildings on the same level, so it did have a presence. I was a site manager for Fletcher's, and after the September earthquake, it was my job plus my men to restore it.
I was at the Chancellor for earthquake repairs from the September quake. The hotel, they would give us a list of rooms that were vacant at the time, and we'd go and do a bit there. And then the following day we'd have other rooms. We sort of chopped and changed a bit.
Most the ground floor, of course, was lobby and restaurant. And then as you moved to the lifts, you went up to the accommodation. We had 176 rooms up there. It was a type of building that it actually wasn't supported on each side. Part of the hotel protruded over the Tattersalls Lane, so one wall was not actually on the outside of the hotel, it was moved in. So you had 26 stories of hotel hanging 4 metres over Tattersalls Lane.
I just got a new job in Australia, so we'd packed up all of our belongings, we'd put it all in suitcases, and we were staying the night at the Grand Chancellor Hotel before we flew out the next day. And because I work in hotels, you know everybody, I got a nice little upgrade from our standard room, which would have been down low, up to almost the top floor.
So I was in Christchurch on February 22nd, 2011, staying on the 25th floor of the Grand Chancellor.
It was a pretty ordinary day. We weren't really expecting much to happen, were we?
No,
just plodding along with our little jobs.
Chilling out.
And eating our lunch. I was in kind of like a chair, like a tub chair in the lounge, and I think you were in a couch or something.
I was sitting on the couch, yep.
Opposite each other kind of thing.
It was a clear day, and all my men were on the top floor.
I remember thinking, oh, well, look at my watch, almost lunch. And then the building gave a bit of a heave. And I thought, well, that was a good shot, good shape. And a couple of seconds later, it all started.
So loud, wasn't it? The noise was insane.
But it was that first hit, wasn't it? And I remember thinking, oh, there's one, and it was it going to be?
You could hear it coming. Then it hit, and it was just horrendous. It came up from underneath. The whole hotel just went. You could see the ceiling collapsing, and the water pipes and the ventilation pipes, all that started to break down and fall out the ceiling.
The building started to jackhammer up and down. So it was moving left and right very violently, but it was also moving up and down very violently. And I actually fell onto my back.
I remember trying to stand up and not being able to, just being tossed around like a doll, really, and watching the scaffold jump a foot off the ground. And I remember thinking, if these planks start coming down, I'm gone.
It knocked me out of my chair. I fell on the ground straight away. And then it was just like, oh man, I can't even explain it. It was so violent.
I remember just looking across at Amber and she was on the floor.
I was crawling.
And I kind of like went to get up and I was thrown on the floor, and then we just crawled across the floor to the table.
And then Andy had to hold the table legs down so we could stay under the table because it was moving that much.
It was just bouncing, and I was bouncing off the ground and actually just slamming into it and bouncing and slamming and bouncing, like actually getting air.
I remember the room being just completely, basically obliterated.
All I could hear was all the plates and glasses and cutlery just falling out of the cupboards and smashing everywhere.
On level 3, which was a makeshift office, I was doing timesheets, as it were. I was just about to head up, and then it struck. The lights went out and I was sort of thrown to the floor. 10 seconds is not long, but when you're enduring it, it seems like an eternity.
The whole building was jumping. Everything was moving, everything was jumping off the floor, and it was pretty scary.
Just seeing what was going on and knowing how much I was bouncing, and I just knew the building couldn't withstand that sort of punishment, I guess. And in my head, I was just thinking, it's got to stop, it's got to stop. It can't, the building won't be able to handle this.
I was convinced what was happening was the building was coming down. I thought we were free falling, essentially. And I remember thinking, when it stops, I just want it to be over with. I just want it to be lights out. I don't want to be the person at the bottom of the rubble that's lingering for days.
When it stopped and we actually opened the door and went out, all the ceiling had collapsed in the lobby, and the young girls in the reception, they were covered in plaster. They were screaming. I managed to get them down to the other end where the other leg was and out through a safety door. My attention then turned to my wife, who, and I'm thinking, well, I've got to get my wife out. I didn't know where Faye was at this stage.
Survival kicks in, and I didn't think, what am I supposed to do now? I've just got to get out of here because it was so black, so dark. I tried to get out through the side door, but it had jammed because it was underneath the part of the hotel that it tipped. So I had to walk along this long, long corridor, feeling the wall. And the fire hose cupboard had opened, and I smacked my face on that, so I had to shut that. And then as I walked along, I saw the chink of light under the door into the lobby, so I made my way towards that and pulled the door open.
And she came walking towards me, and all this dust and stuff, and it was all caked in her hair.
And then Graham, my husband, came over and grabbed me, and we ran out through the door as the glass started to fall down behind us. And we just ran outside, and I looked up at the building. I thought, oh my God, this is it.
You knew. You just knew then you were never going back in that building again because you could see that the tilt on it.
It suffered a mortal wound, and you can hear this building groan, the concrete groan. I thought, you know, there's hundreds or thousands of tons of concrete above me. It's going, you know, it's on its way down. It must be. It can't withstand this. I thought it was over.
As soon as it was over, I knew that I just had to get out as fast as I could. So I ran to the door that led to the stairs on the way down. And just there in the hallway, I ran right into a girl coming the other way. And it was one of the staff members there, the housekeeping staff. She was frantic and she was screaming, we're gonna die, we're gonna die. And she was holding on to me. And I just told her, no, we just gotta get down the stairs as fast as we can. I was telling my legs, go, 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 go. You've got it, you can't stop now, you've got to get out of here. I was taking 2 and 3 steps at a time and running down, and she's holding around my neck, and I'm sort of just dragging her down with me.
Amber was starting to panic. You were trying to open the door
Yeah.
and the door wouldn't open, it was jammed because the building was on a lean. And so all of the door jambs and everything had moved. So you couldn't get it out and, you know, sort of had a foot on the wall and,
Yeah.
and trying to pull it open, and we finally got it open, it burst open. And then we just met with a wall of pitch black.
Next thing I know, my mate who was working as a plasterer up there, he came to the door with a look of sheer terror on his face. And he looked at me and I looked at him and I said, "Where's Lem?"
I was just finishing up a join when the earthquake struck, and I'd been sitting doing the join, and I got thrown from the scaffolding across onto the mezzanine floor.
So we ran upstairs, and here's Lem sitting on his bum. He'd been thrown off the scaffold, looking really dazed and confused. And from memory, I had to shake him, say, "Come on, mate, we've got to move, we've got to go."
We literally walked like this,
Yeah.
with the hands in front, so we couldn't see anything at all. And then we felt around, and then there was a door handle.
And then once we opened the door, there were lights in the stairwell, and we
Yeah.
could see. But there was just like dust, like just dust, cloud, wasn't there?
Yeah. You couldn't breathe because it was just all the concrete dust. So we started going down the stairs, and there was probably 4 people in front of us, going down 2 by 2 down the stairs. And we were obviously just back a bit, and Amber was saying, "Come on, hurry up, hurry up." And we were all just saying, "Just relax and calm down. We're gonna just have to, we've got 25 flights. We've got to get down out of this, and then we'll get there." And all of a sudden, the people in front of us just stopped, and we all stopped, and we said, "What's going on?" And they said, "There's no more stairs." I'm like, "What?" I just didn't register. "What do you mean there's no more stairs?" And so I looked over, and it was just like a sheer drop.
I don't know how far down I could see, but I could see far enough to realize that there's nothing there. This is not a way out any longer.
We got to 22 and one side of the stairs had just gone. And you could basically look from level 22 all the way down, and there was just nothing there. One side of the stairs was there, but the other side was just a big void. It's like someone had just cut a section out of the building, and you could see onto every level on the way down, and there was guests and hotel staff and some very, very scared people.
We could see some folks down from where the stairs where you could see folks down on other levels, and I remember them yelling up, "Is there a way out up there?" And we said, "No, is there a way out down there?" And no, and somebody mentioned a fire hose, and so we went and ran the fire hose off the reel to see how far down it could go. But it wasn't a full-size fire hose, it was like your garden hose type size.
There was sirens going off. The emergency system the alarm was going off. That's all you could hear. And you couldn't think, it was just really, really loud.
My first thought was for my man on the top floor, so I tried the door into the stairwell, and that was jammed shut. I did a long circuit down to my ute, got my pinch bar out, returned, got it open, walked up to level 14, and then I saw just air and dust. There was no stairs. It had collapsed one on top of the other.
We were held up on 22, and there was more guests, more staff, the maintenance crew, us, maybe 10 or 15 people at that point. And the minibars were broken into, and people were drinking rum and coke and not too sure what was going to happen next.
I had a Karuba and Coke from the minibar. That was nice. As did most others. It seemed like a good way for everyone to calm down and take stock.
I had a cigarette. I don't normally smoke, but I think I grabbed someone's last cigarette off them, had a durry. And that was sort of, at that point there, it was sort of, righto, we're here now. What are we going to do about it?
There were 2 guys who were just trying to smash a window because obviously we couldn't breathe, and so we needed some air and to let the dust out.
And they were running at this window with this massive chair. And then maybe like the 4th or 5th time it broke. The chair flung out and the guys almost fell out as well. The force of them running at the window to break it was that much. And that was good because we could breathe then.
I looked out the window and I could see all the buildings that had collapsed and lots of dust. You could hear all the alarms going off. Our alarm was blaring. And then all the people were just evacuating. It was just thousands of people and they're all just leaving us.
And I was like, we need to get out of here. Like, literally, we're not going to be able to get out of here. I want to get out of here. We tied sheets together and lowered them down to sort of see how far it was because I wanted to get out so desperately. I probably would have abseiled down if these guys had let me. But yeah, it was just a helpless situation. We couldn't, and I think that's what it was. Like I couldn't do a thing. We just had to sit up there.
I went down and through the reception. There was water on the floor, handbags and luggage just sitting there. People had left them. It was an eerie feeling, an eerie, sort of a scene. I thought the best plan would be to go outside and look for help there. But Cashel Street, in the middle of the day, was empty.
And I remember looking down onto the road and Graham Hand, he was running the job for Fletcher's, and he was pacing up and down.
I looked up to the top floor and I saw Barry and a few other faces against the window. I recognised them through the glass. And I thought, right, well, at least they're alive.
The building was definitely falling away. I remember looking down the corridor and it was just on a slope.
The dropped corner of the building was so obvious, and we at some point needed to get some medication for a couple. That was probably the point that day I felt most scared, because the effort it took to get this door open more made you realise how much weight was sitting on the door frame, and you're a bit worried that if you open that door you're taking a piece out of the Jenga blocks, sort of felt like, what's this going to do? And that was the first time I remember thinking that it could start going bad from here.
There was concrete above you and around you, and you knew that it was so badly damaged, and it just felt like a ticking time bomb. I honestly thought that the building would come down, so I was expecting that we wouldn't get out. It just felt like it was gonna...
We could hear the aftershocks. They were coming. They were pretty loud, so we knew, didn't we?
Yeah, as each one hit, you just, again, it was that feeling of, is it going to be a big one or not, and is this the one that brings the building down?
Something that I definitely was feeling was that I had a very short time left in this world. Yeah.
I had my wallet in my pocket, and I honestly was just thinking, well, they'll be able to identify my body based on my wallet, and Amber was holding hers and she would have lost it. And I said to her, oh, why don't you throw your wallet away, put your FBUS card and your driver's license in your pocket, just to keep your hands free. She said, oh, okay, yeah, good idea. And that to me was actually me wanting to make sure that her parents could get her body back quickly, because I'd be able to identify her.
The big aftershock, which is, I think it was a 5.5, about 2 hours into it, and Andy grabbed me. And he grabbed me and we stood by the pillar, and you just put your arms around me and you whispered, I love you. So I remember thinking, with my eyes closed, what will I hear? Like, what will it be like at the end of my life? And I just remember thinking, oh, I'll hear steel beams cracking first. That's probably what I'll hear. And then hopefully the floor will just fall away and then it'll be over quick. I can remember thinking that. in the moment, and it all seemed to just go so slowly. It was, yeah, terrifying.
I was in my office on the 8th floor of the Central Police Station, as it was then, in Hereford Street. So I got down to the ground floor and saw my old mate, who was a sergeant down at reception. And he said, "She's pretty bad, Dave." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, what do you reckon?" He said, "Well, grab a portable, grab some gear, get your vest and stuff." Yeah, it was just absolute chaos. And then someone yelled out to me that there were people trapped at Hotel Grand Chancellor. And I looked up and I thought, wow, it's on quite a lean. And you could see it with the aftershocks. It was moving, and thought, this doesn't look good.
I was looking up at the building, I was just wondering what the heck do I do now, and I heard the voice first, I didn't see him. He said, "Oh, what are you doing?" or something to that effect. So I went up to him and I said, "Oh, what are you doing here, mate? Well, it's pretty risky, you know." He said, "My staff are up there. I've got some staff up there and they're trapped up there. The internal stairways have collapsed," and, you know, he was like me, he was just shocked.
When I first arrived, it was that I recognised was Sergeant Dave Harvey, and he said that we were going to organise getting these people out.
Having seen what happened in 9/11, I was really concerned that some people might try and exit the building using those sheets. You could actually see the sheets hanging down, and I wanted to get a message to them. And so I said to Brian, "Have you got any crash paint?" And he said, yeah, I have, so go and grab it." So I sprayed on the road, and I don't know, it must have been at least a metre high. Help was on the way.
I think we talked about what we were going to write, and he was speaking it as he was writing it, "Help is on the way." And I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that?
It was important that they knew that we weren't going to leave them.
At one point, someone came and said the police had pulled up outside on the street and that they were writing a message. You had to go down to the dangerous end of the hallway to see it. But I went down and had a look, and they'd sprayed in giant letters on the road, "Help is on the way."
And I just I think I bawled my eyes out, didn't I, with relief. I was like, oh my God, thank God, someone knows we're here.
The internal staircase had gone, so we knew we couldn't get him out internally. That was the big issue. And then the fire service came along and with their extension ladder, but that wasn't high enough.
My biggest fear was the building toppling over. We asked comms for a helicopter. Then when a helicopter came over and you could feel the downdraft, and thought, oh, that's a bit dangerous. We didn't want it interfering with the Grand Chancellor Hotel. We weren't sure how stable it was. And so we called that off, asked comms to get the helicopter away from the building.
I just felt like we were so high up, I had no idea how anyone would get us.
I just knew we were a long way off the ground, and the only thing in my head was we've got to get down.
We got more desperate to get ourselves out.
You could probably get down the fire stairs using fire hoses and ropes and bits and pieces to kind of get down there, but it was dangerous.
So we ran back up and got about 30 metres of rope. If there was no other way, at least we could tie that off and perhaps try to go down floor by floor. But very grateful that Barry came up with a better idea.
And I just thought, well, actually, because you could see every door on the way down. You know, you could look down and you could see the door below, and the door below that, and the door below that. So the landing would be, say, halfway between floors, but the landing and one side of the stairs had gone. And I just thought about it, thought, well, there's a door there. I'm pretty sure I can get that door open. And then there's a whole corridor. You can walk around the building and then end up at the same place and then get down to the next door and then go down. You know, so you basically corkscrewed your way down the building. We then went up and said, righto, we're going down. Who's coming?
We were like, us.
We said, yeah,
we're
we're
coming.
The hotel maintenance manager told everyone not to. He said, don't go, it's too dangerous. Because we had to go down some of the broken fire stairs to get down, and you know, going down those stairs was obviously pretty dangerous.
I remember the stairs looking like a big pile of rubble. I remember rebar, I remember just concrete chunks, and just a big mess.
Just told everyone to stay the one story behind us. I tiptoed down the stair. I remember giving a boot, nothing moved. So we popped the pins on the hinges. I got my pinch bar into the top corner of the door, because you couldn't open the door because it had jammed. Jimmied it enough to get our hands in, then basically ripped the door out of the hole. We walked down around the building, and then all of a sudden we were on level 21.
One guy would go down the stairs first and open the door, and then he'd stand there and call us down one at a time. When it was my turn to go down these stairs, the end, there was a big gap, like a foot, that you had to jump over. And I can remember jumping over, looking down and seeing nothing underneath, like just the cliff and the rubble. You wouldn't have survived that if we'd fallen down there. No way.
I remember the handrail was there, and you just had this death grip on the handrail, which is probably only held into the wall with 3 screws the whole length. You know, like if the stairs fell away, somehow that was going to hold you.
At that point, the adrenaline's pumping pretty hard. And the further we got down, the more people we picked up, the more rooms we broke into to make sure it was clear as best we could.
We had a lot of fun breaking doors. Like, if there was one positive, when do you get to smash up a hotel? You got to break down doors, and any that we thought stood in the way of possibly people being behind there, we took every opportunity to check.
At one point we came into a level and we found a desk, and then underneath that desk were 2 young German tourists that were just hiding under it, clutching a Bible. And we sort of grabbed them and pulled them out, and they were just super thankful, and they just joined with us, and we all carried on. And I think we would have started with maybe 10 of us that left on level 22. And there would have been, we would have picked up at least 10 or a dozen people, I suppose, on the way down.
About halfway down, so say level 17, 16, around there, we'd gone down the stair again, and we were starting to break down that particular door, and that's when the 2 big aftershocks came through. I remember stuff falling in the main stairwell, falling down, and it went on for quite a few seconds, and it was just like, oh shit, this is it.
One stair side of the stairwell had dropped, so there was that idea that the side we're on could do the same.
It was at that point I remember saying, I'm scared now, boys. And Lem and Christian said, no mate, you're right, you're doing a good job, carry on, carry on. But that's about the only point where I thought, actually, if this landing goes, or the stair goes that we're on, we're gone.
The first time we had any realisation of the seriousness of it in town, the severity, was one of our crane operators on the radio in a blind panic, because he'd witnessed the CTV building collapse, and he couldn't get on the phone because the phone system was down, so he'd actually got on the two-way radio and was just panicking, just demanding that we get in there to help. I do recall travelling down Sawyers Arms Road, which is just by our depot, and a police car coming the opposite direction had turned around and put his flashing lights on and actually given us a police escort into the centre of town.
It was quite an awesome sight. Here was this big crane riding down the middle of Cashel Street. It could have been a tank, you know, with a war-torn zone. But here it was, trundling down the middle of Cashel Street and heading our way. It's a great sight.
We got to level 14 and we started going down the stairs, and all of a sudden we stopped. The stairs had gone. And that's where all the stairs from the building had ended up. So from 22 down to 14, that's where they just piled up on each other. We broke the window out onto the roof of the level 13 conference centre. And I remember one of the boys saying, "Oh, come on, mate, you've broken enough windows today, can't I have a go?" One of the staff, she had some old sheets from one of the rooms and sort of covered up any remaining glass that when we climbed out, we wouldn't cut ourselves.
When we got out onto the roof of the car park, we'd hoped that we would be able to get down, but we couldn't. There was no stairs. All of a sudden, someone said, "Oh, there's a crane coming."
I basically drove right round the block to see where we could put the crane because I didn't want to be on the downside of the way the building was leaning. It was quite surprising to see how much of a tilt it had on it. We were side on to the way it was going to fall, so technically it was going to fall past us if it went. That was the theory anyway.
There was a chance that the hotel could have come down, but the people inside the building had to come out somehow. So, I mean, we did what we had to do.
The ground was shaking, and quite violently, but they just went about their business, getting the legs out, putting chocks under to stabilise it.
I was super relieved, obviously, that the crane was there, but still didn't feel overly safe because this building was kind of leaning down on us.
So we were still 14 stories up.
When we first saw the crane, it felt like it accelerated the urgency. Like, it started to feel like it'd be terrible to get this far, and then while we're waiting on the crane to set up, the building to come down and take us all with it.
And I remember getting out on the roof and doing a head count and thinking, we had more people than this. There should have been more people, and there are a few faces I realised weren't there. And then I remember looking back up, and here are these faces looking out the window at level 22. They'd stayed in there. And I remember looking at Lem, and Lem looked at me, and I went, "Oh, for fuck's sake." And with that, Lem and I went back up round the way we'd come. I remember saying, "Right, you're either coming with us now, or we're not coming back." And I might have gone first, and Lem was behind, making sure we didn't lose anyone. And we got them out onto the roof pretty much just as the crane, from memory, the man cage was getting up. So level 14 was a far cry from level 22 for the crane. It was an easy reach.
It was brilliant that he came up with that plan to rip the doors off, and they had the gear to do it, because if he hadn't have done that, we would have been potentially rescuing people from every level that we had to, breaking a window and pulling people out. Before I landed up on the roof, I told them what was happening, and then we landed and literally just said, "We'll just take as many as I can." I opened the gates. A few aftershocks were happening at the same time, so you'd hear glass sort of breaking here and there and shatter onto the ground. So you're constantly looking everywhere to see, such an escape route to see what's going on, so you had your own path out. If something was going to go wrong, you didn't have long to get out of there, basically. The way the building was moving, it wasn't just moving like that, it was quite significant.
We had quite a big aftershock when we were bringing the second load of people down from the building, and I can remember the man cage started to sway a wee bit, and there's a bit of an art with the crane to be able to move the crane in a direction to be able to catch that swing. so that it didn't seem so bad. So I know I was doing that quite a bit, backwards and forwards, to keep the man cage steady.
You know, some people were kneeling on the cage, holding onto the bottom rails. They just wanted to get down, so the closer to the bottom of the cage they felt was, I suppose, faster or more secure.
One of the employees, when the cage door was open, she ran out and she fell onto the ground and she just lay prostrate on the ground, and just the whole body was moving. She was sobbing and she was hugging the ground. Then she got up, she came running over to us, and yeah, that was pretty amazing. And with all these people just realised that they were alive, and that was great.
It wasn't until I stepped into the basket and we were moving that I actually was like, oh my God, we made it.
You know, all this time of thinking we're not going to make it out, and here we are, we're going to get down.
I remember getting onto the ground and looking back up, and that's sort of when things started hitting me a bit, going, oh, shit, righto. And I remember just seeing buildings down, shop fronts down. It wasn't until you got on the ground the magnitude of the whole thing sort of hit you.
I think for me it was when the basket landed on the street and we got out and we were walking away,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh my goodness.
That just happened to us and we're alive.
They put us in these police cars and they drove us through the city, and it was like a movie scene. Every building was damaged and cracked and fallen down. The roads were torn apart, and they drove us out to Hagley Park and pulled the car up, and
We got out.
and that was it.
That was it.
And we were just like left, and we were kind of like, wow.
Like, what are we going to do now? Like, we've got literally nothing with us. We've got the clothes on our backs, no phone. And so we just decided to walk to my auntie's house, which was on the other side of the park. For some reason, Facebook was working on her computer, and my brother had written a message that said something like, Amber, Mum and Dad don't know where you are, they're freaking out, you need to get hold of them. And so then we were like, we need to go.
So we borrowed a car, we borrowed Amber's auntie's car, and we had to drive from Riccarton over to South New Brighton. And that was quite an adventure in itself, trying to get through all the broken streets.
It was getting dark when we got there. That's how long it took. They weren't home, there was nobody there, couldn't see anybody inside, and then I saw a tiny little note on the door, and it said, Amber, we've gone to the Brighton police station, we don't know what to do.
About 7 o'clock, it dawned upon me, hey, we actually need to do something here. We don't know where they are, we haven't heard from them. We better go to the police station. Went to the police station, reported them missing, and came back. And when we came back, lo and behold, there they were. Which was just amazing.
Getting out of the car and seeing them there, it was like, it's just such an absolute relief. I can't thank the people enough that were in the building, and these guys, they risked their lives to save our kids and to save the other people in the building.
Months after, you had nightmares. And especially my wife, she has bad dreams about it. So it'll go on for some time, and you know, she wasn't well for a while after it. So.
It's just a whole lot of little things that you find yourself doing now that you never did before. I just don't like being in confined spaces anymore, in the dark. I think it marks you for life. I really do. I think it's something that will never leave you.
Being that it turned out the way it did, it was a great experience because it it changed my life. Certainly live for the moment a little bit more. And most significantly, I think for me, is that my wife and I have been trying to have kids for a number of years. It sort of jump-started the push towards us moving to adopt. And so we essentially right after that, we started the adoption process pretty soon after getting back home and really understanding that, time is fleeting and life is short, and, life's a mess, but it's a beautiful mess.
About a year after the earthquake, I think I finally realised that I hadn't really dealt with all the trauma from that day, and it sort of, wasn't really coping so well, and ended up getting diagnosed with PTSD, which was, both relieving and I guess shocking for someone who'd, been pretty strong in the past. So I spent a lot of time getting help for that.
Maybe I did have post-traumatic stress, I don't know, but I just carried on. Went back to work as soon as I could. First week, I think every time we got an aftershock, they had to peel me off the ceiling. First week back at work, that was a week or so after the quake. And in the end, I just said, I've got to get off. So I went down south and saw family.
There was a time where it was so bad in that PTSD haze, and I can remember saying to Andy, one day we'll be glad the earthquake happened to us, that experience happened to us. I think we can say that now.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's made me a better person, a more understanding person. I think just sort of calmed me down and chilled me out a little bit more, and really made me focus on what's important in life. I think, looking back, the only thing I would have done differently is tried to maybe make contact with the people that we're in there with, because it wasn't until much later, probably years later, that you realise that there's a bond there, and in the moment you didn't even think you were going to survive, so why bother remembering someone's name? I don't even remember saying thank you to anyone.
No.
I think it's just a psyche that we have as maybe Kiwis, is we just get in there when we're needed, and people that was shown all over town that day. There was people that weren't in the emergency services or weren't trained to do it, but they were just putting everything they could in to help, because that's in our psyche. I think we just do it.
People talk about teamwork. The All Blacks talk about teamwork. A lot of people talk about teamwork, and we talk about teamwork in the police, in the army. So he had a group of people who were brought together in extreme circumstances. One person wouldn't have been able to achieve it by themselves, but a team of people can accomplish some amazing things, and that's what happened.
It was so nice meeting Dave and hearing his story and his view on things, and the fact that he was the guy who wrote Helpers on the Way. That was such a pivotal moment in, I guess, me just feeling like we were going to be okay.
Could have been much, much, much worse.
And maybe we were lucky because we were trapped in that building. 185 people weren't so lucky.